Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hump Day Happy Hour with your favorite people on the face of the earth, the dentist in the know, the dinks. It is an incredibly exciting week. We've got a great guest tonight. Jeff is not here. So as usual, when Jeff's not here and I'm in charge of intros, they kind of suck. I'm just going to be honest with you, but it is what it is. So here you go. Welcome to Dinks, your backstage pass to all the trends, politics, and news in dentistry. I'm here, Chad Duplantis, with my really fantastic, great friend, Dr. Jennifer Bell, and we are here to bring all of you in the know.
In the know.
Hey, was that a little better, JV?
It was better. He just
better?
has a level of enthusiasm and,
I'm going to let everybody in on a
theatrics.
secret.
It's just hard to replicate.
He reads a script.
Well, he does it better than us trying to do it without
But
script.
I don't have the script. So you know what? I'm just going to say it is what it is. It
I
is
know.
what it is. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, the biggest news in dentistry over the last week, and a few folks have sent it to me online as well, is that the ADA has updated their new radiation requirements for the thyroid collar. We first talked about this story when it came out from the oral maxillofacial radiology crew back in the fall, where they were saying that the data just did not support the use of thyroid collars anymore for any type of dental radiography. And now the ADA has examined and reviewed that literature and assessment and has also agreed that thyroid collars will no longer be required for traditional dental radiography. And that includes intraoral, CBCT, and PAN. Now, a couple of things that we have mentioned in the past that did come up. There are several states that have come out and said that they will still be upholding the thyroid collar requirement. So just because the ADA and the oral maxillofacial radiologists have changed their tune on thyroid collar protection doesn't mean, and actually, I think lead aprons in general doesn't mean that that you have the authority or autonomy to not use thyroid collars anymore. So you need to check with your state requirements and what the state laws are. If the law is actually in the legislative piece of it and not just a regulatory issue within the dental board, then to get that changed actually would require most practices or most states to open up their Dental Practice Act and change how patients are to be protected during radiography. That is definitely a taller ask than just for the board to update their requirements and recommendations. So you need to check with your state to find out where the radiology guidelines are being held and then what the state's current best practices are before you start adopting this new change. Now, there was one part of the article that came out from the ADA that I thought was super interesting for all of our CBCT users out there. So I really wanted to highlight this note. Now, obviously, their recommendation of changing the thyroid collar use applies to all patients, regardless of age or health status, including pregnancy. But they also kind of leaned back on the ALAR principle, where you're trying to use as low as reasonably allowed. And so, obviously, you want to order radiographs when you're trying to make an optimal diagnosis, and that it supports a journey through the diagnostic process with your patients. You want to definitely use digital instead of conventional film. And I think this kind of came out again to say most individuals should be converting over to digital at this time because the radiation exposure is significantly less. And this is ultimately why they've come out in support of removing thyroid collars from the lead aprons. We have the ability to restrict the beam size now with the different tube heads that are available to us, and that proper positioning should be taken. But here's the interesting thing: incorporating CBCT only when lower exposure options will not provide the necessary diagnostic information. Now, for those of us out there who may be using CBCT on every patient who walks into the door, this certainly does raise up an interesting legal issue that could come forward if you were to look at these updated guidelines from the ADA that CBCT technology in the dental office should only be used in support with intraoral images that are not giving you full diagnostic information. I would assume if you're treating TMJ and airway issues, you could certainly justify taking it from a medical perspective. But just be aware that that's now in writing coming out from the ADA. And so if you have protocols in which all patients receive CBCTs, you might just want to relook at that and make sure that you have appropriate information within your clinic notes, et cetera, to justify that radiation exposure. But that is the update from the ADA coming out to us on February 1 of this year, 2024, that thyroid collars are no longer recommended for our patients and actually increase the number of images that are required to be taken because they typically block the beam. Another interesting development, and I'm happy to report this as one of our other proud educational partners here at Dentists in the Know. Align Technology made a particular list for the year of 2023. It was ranked among the top 300 companies that were granted U.S. patents in 2023. Now, they applied for patents in clear aligners, intraoral scanners, 3D printing, CAD/CAM software, and AI for treatment planning. In total, they were granted 158 U.S. patents for the year of 2023. That's an increase of 36% over 2022. And I think we've already seen some of those innovations starting to get some highlight. We saw their new scanner released just last week, the Lumina, which definitely has a more slim profile and more cameras to help us capture accurate information. I think we're going to learn a lot more about this scanner in the upcoming weeks, but I'm sure that's a significant part of some of the patents that they were applying for in 2023. And interesting, though, that artificial intelligence, printed orthodontic devices, and CAD/CAM software is also included in those lists of patents. They were ranked number 270 out of a list of 300. So that's pretty phenomenal. If you ever wonder why you work with Align, I think innovation has to be at the top of the list. A last little bit of information that also came out from the ADA as a total of 2023, looking at the number of dentists per state, there actually was a slight dip. We're down to 202,304, not significantly, just a less than a half a percentage point down. But definitely we had a few fewer licensed dentists in 2023 than we did in 2022. I kind of just stumbled on the fact that California has 30,000 dentists in their population, licensed dentists. Compare that to 583 in Alaska. And the next highest state, I'm going to go through this list really quickly. The next highest state is Texas at 16,000, New York at 14,000, and Florida at 12,000. So that's a pretty big, significant difference between the highest state at 30,000, obviously some of the lowest states like North Dakota at 396, but then even the second highest state is almost 15,000 dentists less than what you have in California. So no wonder there's a lot of competition currently in California. And with that, that's the news.
That was interesting. And I'm not a fan of the thyroid collar, but here's the way that I look at this. I think that a few years ago, the thyroid collar companies were lobbying for pole position in the dental office.
Yeah,
And now somebody else is lobbying that it's not needed. So like we just had to like upgrade all of our lead aprons. Like
I
it
know.
just seems like yesterday. And now it's like, yeah, screw it. You don't need it, you know. But I do love that we're finally realizing that digital is the way to go. I mean, it's such a drastic difference in the amount of radiation. So
Yeah, I think
uh,
lead aprons will be next. I mean, I do think that the collimation that we're able to achieve with digital in particular and how small we're able to get this down to, I think in general, they're going to find that there really is no significant benefit in protection. But it'll take a while for that to really fully change.
I
And what
totally
did you think
agree.
about the CBCT comment that they put it in writing now that the recommendation is just to take CBCT in the event that you can't get what you need from traditional intraoral radiography?
Oh yeah, yeah. I would agree, but I like how they positioned it, and I don't think it's rocket science. I mean,
Mm-mm.
I think the way they position CBCT is somewhat fair. It's not saying don't take it. It's just
Right.
saying make sure you have a reason to take it. And I think in all honesty, we all have a reason to
Agreed.
hobby and take it. Um, and so I think there's a promising future there for CBCT, and I wouldn't let it hurt anybody in their quest for becoming a better diagnostician. So
Agreed.
should we bring our guest
I
on?
would love that.
Okay, so we're gonna bring our guest on. You all may or may not have heard of this gentleman, but I'm gonna tell you a little backstory. This is how I do my bios, Kevin. Sorry, you're gonna have to deal with it.
No worries.
So last year, maybe a year and a half ago, a really good friend of mine who everybody in dentistry should know is Mike Buckner. And Mike Buckner says, "Hey, Chad, what are you doing for phones in your office? Da 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 da." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm not too happy, whatever." And he's like, "Hey," he's like, "you need to talk to my buddy Kevin. He's the CEO of Mango." And I'm like, "Okay, that sounds great." And as soon as I met Kevin, I could tell you that he is just as salt of the earth as Mike Buckner is, and that's saying a lot. An incredibly nice guy. Anytime I text him or have a question, he's right there, Kevin on the spot to answer the questions. But in looking through Kevin's bio, Kevin's been an entrepreneur for a long time. He lives in southern Utah in St. George. He led a logistics company from startup to over $100 million in revenue before exiting into a Fortune 100. And in 2017 is when he took his interest to the next level. And with a business partner, they made an investment in Mango Voice. And I will tell you that if you look at, the dental social media world, you will see that Mango has been supportive of every social media platform out there involved in dentistry. I think they found their niche. Either it's that dentists are stupid, or it's that there's really a market there. I'm sorry, Kevin, I had to say it. But anyhow, all kidding aside, we are Mango users in our office. We haven't looked back since we've done so, and I kudos to you for finding the niche in the world and finding a great profession to be associated with. So, Kevin Tallman from Mango, thank you for being a proud partner of Dentist in the Know, and thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, grateful on a couple levels. One, grateful to be here and grateful to be able to support Dinks and all the amazing work that you guys do. It's incredible to be part of this community. And a little over almost 6 years ago, I knew nothing about dental, so it's been a great learning opportunity.
So take us back. I mean, for those of you that don't know, Mango is safe to say a phone company.
Yeah.
A voice over internet protocol phone company for dentistry. Super easy to use. But take us back. As I read your bio, I was a little confused. Was Mango already in existence before you made an investment into it, or did you decide? Was it a startup in 2017?
Yeah, so Mango already existed. So like you said, we had recently sold our company, and I took about 6 months to recalibrate and feel like a human after that experience. It was a pretty daunting task. We scaled it very rapidly, and so about 6 months after selling that, I was actually talking to my neighbor, who's the founder of Mango, and we just started talking about kind of where Mango was. He had a partner; they were having issues. The business just kind of was stalling out a little bit, and so we kind of dove in and got to know the team and what Mango was trying to accomplish. And for us, we got excited about the opportunity, and so we actually came in and bought his partner out, recapitalized the business. I will say our original thesis was, hey, we'll help you from a strategic perspective. We'll help you get your accounting right, your finances, things like that. but we really wanted to kind of be in the background. Obviously, that hasn't fully come to fruition as my role is leading the organization, but it's been an incredible journey. And, from our perspective, it's been a great investment, and it's gone really well.
So what led you to dentistry, or how did that come about?
Yeah. So the way that we got into dentistry, and for me, when I talk to people, I say business comes down to a couple things, and a majority of it is timing and luck. And the other maybe 5 or 10% is just don't be an idiot, like make really good decisions. So they had met Glenn Vo at a trade show, and he was talking. This was kind of at the genesis of Nifty Thrifty and social media and Facebook groups and things like that. And so that's how we got pulled into dentistry, is a meeting with Glenn Vo, and kind of got pulled into it. And it's been incredible to kind of see the growth in dentistry. In essentially 6-year period, we've grown it to almost 7,000 practices that we service. And yeah, so the answer is, I guess, luck and timing.
That's pretty interesting. It seems like Glenn Vo's name comes up a lot when things get introduced to dentistry. So thanks, Glenn. If you're out there, thank you. You've got a great team that works for you. So, okay, so you get into dentistry, you start, this phone service. What other industries do you service?
Yeah, so dental's our main one, and then the other ones that we service are veterinarians, chiropractors, optometry. So we really like this medical space, and it's been good for us. So like I said, dental's our main one, but we do service those other ones.
You had mentioned that your original strategy was, all of these kind of back end operating systems to be a part. How has that changed? If you were to describe your vision and strategy for Mango today, what's your core focus, and where do you hope to be in 5 years with the company?
Yeah. So a lot of things when you invest in a company, you think you're getting a Ferrari, but oftentimes you're getting a Buick.
Right.
And there's just things that you just don't know until you actually get in there. And I don't care if you're a dental office or if you're a business, it really is messy, and it's ugly, and it's not ugly. Like it works until like you hit these inflection points, and then you realize, oh my gosh, we have something here. And you almost move from like these inflection points to these inflection points. Yeah. And so, our focus has really been up to this point is building out our system so we can scale it. Scaling a system like ours is really, really difficult, because if we blip for 5 or 10 milliseconds, people get really, really mad. If one of your other, software in your offices blips for a minute or 2 or 5, it's like, nah. But like for us, because it's a real-time system, so we've really been focused on the core infrastructure and getting that to a point where we can really scale it. And we've done that. Now our focus is turning to how do we give offices deeper insights and understanding on what's happening with phone calls in their practice, because voice is still the main artery into the practice. A new patient is going to call a practice, most likely, right? They want to see if you take their insurance. It also gives you a sense of like what that office is like, right? Your team members are basically giving off, to that new patient who we are, what we do. The problem is that's one of the most misunderstood transactions in the office. Meaning, you guys spoke to it here earlier, right? You're in the back in the operatory, just grinding away, and your team's out front answering the phones, and hopefully they're doing a good job, because it has a major impact on how your office does. So what we're really working and have been working on for a long time is machine learning models around phone calls, understanding deep analytics on what's happening with these phone calls, as well as becoming more intertwined with your practice management system. So, for example, Curve. How do we become more integrated with Curve, and how do we create a better operational experience with Curve? So that's really our focus, and I think it's going to be our focus for a while. And we're also working on, I don't want to say too much because we're just starting this, but we feel like we're working on some technology that I think will be transformational for dental offices. That's going to help them be able to capture more new patients and be able to free their team up to do other tasks than maybe answer calls, do follow-ups, confirm appointments, things like that.
So basically, as I'm listening to this, I think, and you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when everybody starts thinking of Mango, they think that there's one main competitor out there, or main competitor, but there's a competitor out there. I won't mention any names. But the more I hear this, I don't know that for the people of the past that was really a competitor, because you guys offer something a little bit different. But from what it sounds like to me is that competition is heating up. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's always been there.
Yeah.
To be honest, I often get asked what makes Mango different, and the reality is, the truth of it is if you looked at Mango versus other people that do what we do, it's similar functionality. Our hope is, with what I just talked about, that it'll start to really differentiate Mango so you can't really compare. But today there is a lot of similarities. But the difference between us and other people is the experience that you'll have when you come to Mango. And what you hear people talk about it that are Mango users are, they care about us. The support's really good. The onboarding's really good. Those things really matter. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a lost art in our society to understand a customer experience and to be able to deliver on something that makes people just feel appreciated, know that we're here to support, right? We answer our phones when it rings. So our average answer rate for our support team last year was 1.5 minutes for the whole year. Like, we're putting our money where our mouth is and trying to help, dental offices be able to execute on things that matter. And sitting on the phone on support for an hour or two doesn't drive value for the office. And those things really do matter. And so our hope is, over the course of this year, it's going to be hard to compare us to other people because we will be differentiated. But I will say, I think what you said, Chad, is always been there, and probably will be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I would say this. I think maybe I had a different perspective before I signed on with Mango, but the things in my practice changed when I signed on with Mango. And I mean, trust me, I'm not knocking Mango in any way, because it has been nothing but fantastic since we incorporated it into our office. But our needs from other companies changed. We needed what Mango offered, but there's some things that I think we do need. Something you said earlier, and there's some things that I think that we do need, and you've already mentioned that you're coming out with them, and I'm sitting here over going, yes. But there's something that you mentioned earlier that really just spoke volumes to me. And I speak a lot on technology, and when I think of the word scale, when I think of scale, I always think of like a person or a company incorporating, or throwing technology out to the dental world, but they have no way to manage it from a technical perspective in the dental office. Like, technology is going to fail. I don't care who you are, it's going to fail. It could be a result of the Wi-Fi you have in your office. It could be a result of the computer that you're running the technology on. There's a number of reasons, but it's going to fail. I'm sorry. It is what it is. But the worst thing that happens is when you got a patient in the chair and you've got something that goes wrong, and it fails, I want somebody on the phone right now. And if I can't, then in my mind, they haven't scaled for the delivery of their technology to the masses. But one thing that you said earlier that I thought was fascinating is you're talking about scale. And I'm like, they're increasing customer service and technical support agents. No, you're making sure that your technology, works at the speed that we need it to in our offices. And then the rest of it's going to come later. And to me, that's something that a lot of people don't think about is you're working on infrastructure, if you will, of the technology itself. And that speaks volumes because I don't think we think of that. I think we just always want somebody to answer the phone. You've already said that's happening, but you're working on the infrastructure before you start adding these features to it and making sure that no matter what you add, it's not going to fail. And that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and I think one of the hard things as leaders is making the decisions on what you should focus on. And for us, focusing on our infrastructure it's not like a sexy thing, right? We can't come out and say, hey, check out this new feature, check out this. It's like, oh, hey, check, we put full auto scaling in place. And all of us collectively sit there, me included, say, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, what's auto scaling mean? Oh, this is what it means. Hey, we put, 6 new regions up. We did all these things. And so, going back and saying from a leadership perspective, those are really hard decisions because oftentimes you're allocating resources and time to the foundational pieces that if you can get in place, then you can grow on top of those. The hard part is like, are you willing to make those sacrifices to get that foundation right? Or do you just want to start building on top of it to try to look a certain way or be in the market saying certain things, knowing that, this is going to bite us in the butt at some point. And so I appreciate you saying that because that's really what we've been focused on. And now that foundational piece is in place, we're going to start really kind of ideating and iterating on top of that, which we're really excited about.
So, it's like now we know where engineers go to work after they graduate from college because I have so many engineers in my practice. I'm just going to send them over to Mango Voice.
Hey, we need all the engineers we can get. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, there you go.
If I had to ask, you've got a lot of things kind of stewing in the background. And so without giving away any secrets. But if you could look forward 10, 15 years into a dental practice with Mango included, and you've got Curve and you've got all these different pieces, Pearl and AI and all these things, like what does a dental practice look like from a software perspective?
Yeah, I think one thing will be a part of every practice, and it's going to be kind of AI assistance. And I mean, Pearl's doing some of that, right, with the diagnostic side. I think what you'll find is you're going to have an AI assistant who can think and make decisions and be able to, for example, answer phone calls. They're going to be able to look at your schedule, book appointments. They're going to be able to do things that normally a human, right, is tasked with. And they will just do it. So you're basically going to have this AI assistant who works 24/7 and is able to fill your schedule. It's able to go out and do insurance verifications if needed. It's going to take care of all these kind of task-oriented things, and it's going to do an incredible job, which hopefully frees up people to maybe do more interaction for treatment planning and things of those nature. But I think all of us will have something like that in the dental practice. And it's going to be so married with your practice management system. It's going to know everything about your database. Yeah. It's going to know everybody. And like I said, it's going to be able to interact just like we do.
Do you think this will move? Because I've thought about this for a long time. We've wanted to have a call center away from the office just to eliminate the noise and kind of distraction of calls. Plus, it's really hard to have a front desk and keep all the HIPAA compliant stuff without like walling it off and making it very unfriendly at the same time. And then you don't, the same experience we have as consumers at stores where you go in and then someone calls and the person who calls in gets the preferential treatment over you who got in your car and drove down and went to the store. So do you envision that practices will move more towards a call center style where maybe they might not even have all of their front desk support? It might be virtual support. It might be real support, but in a more centralized location. Do you see that as part of the call infrastructure at all?
Yeah, I think you're seeing, especially, multi-locations going to
Yeah.
centralized kind of contact center functionality. I think in the future that probably humans in your office won't answer phone calls anymore.
Yeah.
That'll be a thing of the past. And it'll be so good that you won't worry about it. The technology is not there yet, but I think the technology over the next probably 5 to 10 years will get to a point where your phone probably won't ring in your office because there's an AI assistant who's just handling all that. I think central contact centers can be good. I think one area that you have to be just very mindful of is what kind of experience are you trying to create for your patients? And by going to a contact center, you lose an element of control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably nice to like peek in and listen to phone calls on occasion. There again, I think technology will allow you to get insights to those calls and alerts and different things like that. But I think you've got to think about that of like, what kind of experience do I want for my practice and what makes sense for me? But I think a lot of people do that and it works well for them.
Yeah, well, we even use remote employees. They work for us, but they alternate time in the physical office versus time at home, and they do other types of activities like insurance verification, but they're away from kind of the activity of the practice a little bit. So it allows them to focus on more attention driven activities that really do require, like processing EOBs and payments and stuff do require a fair amount of attention to detail, which is hard to do when you've got people constantly coming up to the front asking for your help, or you need to check people out. So we're doing kind of a modified approach to that, and it gives what a lot of employees currently want, which is freedom to work from home for some flexibility as well, to stay competitive when you're trying to find these individuals to work for you.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? As you look at, listen, like the core of any good team is the people.
Yeah.
And it's the culture and what you build with that. And I think if you're too stringent and you're almost like your dogma is what it is, I think you lose out on potentially great people. So I like what you said, which is if you can find an awesome person that wants to be hybrid or work remote,
yeah,
more power to you. Like,
well, and that's all possible because of voice over IP.
yes,
if you don't have that functionality and that infrastructure in place, you can't do that with a traditional landline. You need that portability to be able to give them a phone and they can go and do work wherever they can get access to the internet. So, voice over IP is a real critical piece of being able to be competitive in the marketplace and offer that flexibility.
Yeah, and I think cloud-based practice management systems are huge that way too, right? Because now you're not dealing with VPNs and all that stuff that comes with that, and having someone highly technical that has to almost be available all the time to manage VPNs. It's like, oh yeah, we use Curve. Great, you can log into Curve from your home.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yeah.
So how many people do you all have working at Mango?
So we currently have 63. I think
Okay.
I should know that number exactly, but
No, that's all
I
right.
never really know the number.
I put you on the spot. I'm sorry. That's okay. So you got 63 people working there. Have you all started investing in AI initiatives?
Yes.
Okay. So what does that look like? I mean, is that a big piece of your business right now, or just a small piece hoping to work its way up? Or
yeah, it's a small piece in the sense of we're investing, time and resources into understanding it better.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer too that, if we're going to roll out something in this area, it needs to work the right way. It takes time. It's a really hard problem, but yes, we're investing in this area.
So I'm glad to hear that, and I figured I figured I knew the answer, but I just figured I'd let you say it anyways. But we had a great question that just came up, and I know it's come up before. I can't even see who asked this question, but I happen
It
to
was
know.
Chris.
I was just going to say I know who it was, Chris Robinson. Uh, how well do these technologies work in rural areas with limited bandwidth and internet providers? How do you work around unpredictable internet connections? Now, before you answer that, let me tell you a little bit about Chris. Chris is probably one of the smartest dentists I know. Okay. Now, he works in a town. Collectively, I think there's 80 people and there's one tooth. So Chris unfortunately sees the same tooth week after
Yeah.
week. They do like
He's managed to build a business off of
on
that.
one tooth.
Yeah.
But Chris is wondering, and Chris also, he has a remote employee, but he found the length that you can run a phone cable because they ran it all the way up the rural route, through a mailbox, across a fence, and into that person's house. So anyways, Chris wants to know how you operate in areas with limited bandwidth.
Yeah, it's a tough question. The answer is it depends, right? But if you think about new technologies that are coming up, which is Starlink, for example, Starlink's incredible. In fact, we use Starlink at a few locations, and it works really, really well.
Satellite internet?
It's satellite internet, and it works really, really. So that's Elon's satellite internet company.
Okay.
But that works really, really well. I think over the next few years, these rural areas, this is how internet will be delivered to them. It's through satellites, and it's going to be highly stable, and they're going to be able to do whatever they want.
Do you find that the speed with satellite internet is acceptable for a dental office? And okay, so Chris, okay, so let me.
It's expensive though.
Let's
Full disclosure, it's expensive.
It'll get better.
Let me explain this the right way. Chris, you gonna call Elon tomorrow, and you gonna ask him for that Starlink, and he's gonna give you a number to call, and you're gonna get some satellite. All right? Yeah. But no, I was curious about that. And Chris, thanks for the question. It was a really great question, and I know I'm razzing you, but you know what, buddy? I still love you. There you go.
Well, one of the other questions that does come up a fair amount is when you're using a cloud-based software and voice over IP, they're both competing for bandwidth. And do you see a lot of offices struggling to get enough bandwidth to manage both?
Not very often.
Okay.
I mean, most people have plenty of bandwidth nowadays that they can handle both of those, no problem. The reality is VoIP doesn't take a heavy load on your traffic, and we can also write, custom firewall rules to basically give priority to traffic. We could do some different things to be able to help that. But I think, especially if you're in a more kind of metropolitan or established area, the amount of bandwidth we can get now, and it's so cheap, right? If you've got a gigabit, you can do whatever you want.
So that's funny that you say that, Jennifer, because all kidding aside, Chris, I was having an issue where we're in North Fort Worth in a very middle class area.
Yeah.
And we do not have fiber. And so we had just a traditional AT&T DSL line to our practice, and every technological device that we added, and it wasn't the VoIP, it was just like, it wasn't, the computers, it was all of the scanners and the CBCT and all this stuff that we added to our system was really, really bogging it down. And so we just switched last week, and I don't know, to Spectrum, and I was like, okay, well, we're going to keep the AT&T DSL for certain things and this for other things. And I've been amazed at how much that switch happened. So, anybody who's having issues with bandwidth, call around to the other internet providers. I would have never thought I would have used Spectrum in our area, but I've been blown away. And now we've got We actually hooked up all the Amazon TVs that we have in the office. We're running streaming on all the TVs, and there's minimal issues. So yeah. What did
We just
Brian?
saw the specs on Starlink.
Yeah,
That's
that
my
was
husband,
Jennifer's
Oh,
husband.
okay.
Yeah.
He's a little special.
obviously.
20 to 60 milliseconds. I mean, 20 milliseconds latency is fine. Once you get into like the 80s, 100 milliseconds, it could be problematic, but 20 milliseconds, no problem.
Yeah.
They also look really cool in the sky. If you've ever seen one come by,
It's pretty amazing if you think
Yeah.
about it. It's incredible technology. And I think that's how our cell phones will be in the future. We won't have cell towers. It'll all be satellites, because then you
Right.
can have service everywhere. It makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy how fast things are evolving around us. And one of the points that I always try to make is that we always talk about AI and how detrimental it is to society. And well, I shouldn't say we talk about it, but that's all we hear is how detrimental it has the potential of being to society. I truly think it's incredibly beneficial to our profession at this point. I think there's so many benefits, and I think that there's going to be so many more coming down. So I think we need to kind of filter out the bad and look at all the good that it's going to bring to our profession.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's going to transform our lives. I tend to not get on the euphoria of it. I think people say like we're in the first inning. I think we're actually in the batter's box. We haven't even got up to swing yet. But it will be transformational in so many different aspects. And I think about like, what's it going to do not only for dental, but just general health, right? The ability to take all these data points and bring them together to help us be more healthy, early detection.
Mm-hmm.
These types of things are going to be transformational in our lives. It's going to be incredible.
I totally agree. And I'm actually, my daughter's going to college next year, and I'm really getting her well versed in ChatGPT so she can write all of her papers and whatnot and be able to get through college. So,
But that's becoming the search engine of choice.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
If you're not using it for true plagiarism, you can use it as a search function, and you're pulling really good, high quality data, even in its early stages, that are actually more focused, I think, than what you can get on Google, because Google has got a lot of trash now with ads and all kinds of stuff being the first to be seen. So I think ChatGPT for sure is going to be an interesting evolution in how we learn as students and, in our professions.
Yeah. And even me, I find myself right with, I have a 13 and a 12-year-old daughter. And it's interesting because I look at it and say, well, I learned this way, right? But I also got to remember, like, I grew up without the internet, I grew up without cell phones. And just the way these younger kids are going to learn is going to be so fundamentally different than the way that we learned, right? To your point, it's like, I'll go ask ChatGPT about this and I'll learn about it just instantaneously, where we had to go to the library, pull up an encyclopedia, search the encyclopedia, read for hours and hours. It's incredible the amount of just information that's at our fingertips and our kids' fingertips. And so I think we have to remember that, and how we learn and how we adapt is going to be important to us.
I agree.
Well, I totally agree. And we're coming to a close here, man. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you. I want to thank Mango. I'm going to give a shout out, as reluctant as I want to be, but I'm going to give a shout out to Richard William May. No, I'm kidding.
Begrudgingly.
He is truly the face of Mango. Most people see Richard, and Richard does a fantastic job. I've told you time and time again, Kevin, that Richard is overworked and underpaid. There you go, Richard. You owe me. But no, he does a great job. He's a great advocate that you have out there for Mango Voice. Man, closing statement. I'm just going to ask you, why should people consider Mango Voice?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at one of the most important aspects of your practice, which is the phones, it's important that you get a good partner, one that has a good technology. Two is someone in the space that you operate. We understand dentists. And three is someone that you know is going to actually be there to support you and do our very best to create a great customer experience. So if you're looking for those things, Mango's the right partner for you. And, Chad, you said it well, which is people reach out to me all the time and, hey, we're not perfect. We try hard. We don't always hit a grand slam. But another thing I think that makes Mango unique, and it's not because of me, but I'm highly accessible, and I'll answer anybody's message I want to hear, because the way we get better is by learning from our mistakes. And so we want to constantly get better. And I think the other thing is Mango over the next coming years is going to be driving a lot of innovation for dental practices and helping you guys be able to automate things, be able to get deeper insights into what's happening in your practice. And there's nobody that's going to be able to deliver that experience, right? Ring Central won't be able to do that. Nextiva won't be able to do that because they're not focused on these verticals like we are.
Mm-hmm.
I think you did a great job of answering that, but to me, it's just one simple question one simple statement is that Mango knows dental. And I think it's really true that you all know what's going on in the dental space. I mean, you started with Glenvo and you've kind of seen and you've transformed and you're making changes that are very pertinent and important to the dental space. So we certainly notice it. We appreciate it. And we thank you once again for being a educational partner with Dentist in the Know, and we look forward to working with you guys. I'm glad to have you in the practice, and we hope to have you back again, Kevin. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate for the opportunity.
You bet.
So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, I guess that concludes another show. It was fantastic.
We've done it again.
We've done it again. All right. Any closing statements, JB?
We are just really getting excited and gearing up for a big couple of weeks. Next Wednesday, Thursday, we all head to Mexico together to be at the Aspire event, which is the ADA Educational Annual Meeting. And then the following weekend, we're in Chicago for what feels like maybe an eternity. And so hopefully, if you are trying to catch up with us, you'll be able to get some time with us on the floor at Midwinter. We'll be at booth 1206. So we hope you'll stop by and come hang out for a little bit, maybe do a little recording as well. And I'm sure Mango will be there and a proud participant in Midwinter as well. All of our friends will be there. So we hope you'll stop by. We just really appreciate you always giving us just a little bit of your time on Wednesday evenings or whenever you happen to catch this latest episode of Dentist in the Know podcast. If you like what you hear, don't forget you have the opportunity to rate and review and subscribe. And with that, we'll wish you all a great night. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another podcast for Dentists in the Know. On behalf of Dr. Jennifer Bell, Dr. Chad Duplantis, and myself, remember that we've got a great profession, so let's make it a great day, Dinks.